Hey, I'm Dr. Patrick Kingsep, and for quite some time I've held myself back from reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, this book by Mark Manson. Now, it's been gathering dust on my bookshelf, and so then I thought to myself, what's holding me back? Would the book be trying to tell me to be someone like Tyler Durden from the Fight Club?
All the ways you wish you could be, that's me.
Cersei Lannister from the Game of Thrones?
Everyone who isn't us is an enemy.
Ferris Bueller from Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
We have until 6.
I'm sorry. I know you don't care, but it does mean my ass.
You think I don't care?
I know you don't care.
Jules from Pulp Fiction, which is, by the way, one of my favorite movies. Or Harley Quinn.
Huh? What was that? I should kill everyone and escape? Sorry. The voices.
Now, just before we get moving, if you're opposed to the F-bomb, you will need to move past that, as it's freely used in this book and needs to be used to explain the book too. That said, my code word for fuck is fook. So we're going to break this book summary into what I see as 3 main parts. The first being the sugar-coated feel-good trends of other modern self-help books and how this leads us to pursue emotional highs that don't lead to lasting happiness. The second part is to look at some of the hurdles and the barriers to giving fewer fooks. And finally, how to give the right fooks. So in this subtle art of not giving a fook, he argues that our modern society and social media have us searching for pleasure and a meaningful existence by pursuing the wrong things. We just spend too much time and energy worrying about things that just don't matter and won't bring us lasting happiness. Our society and social media encourages us to care about everything. Everyone tells us that the only thing we should aim for is happiness, and we're encouraged to go after it. In the self-help movement, we're told to put our energy into being happy and optimistic. However, because we place so much emphasis on being positive, it draws attention to our shortcomings, so we continue to be stuck. As a result, according to Manson, we develop an addiction to phoniness and becoming fixated on what is short-term and short-lived. Temporary highs are produced instead of long-term contentment in this manner. Social media, which glorifies only the best and brightest, makes us feel like we don't measure up. It's also possible that we begin to believe that we're entitled to a happy life. The second part of Manson's subtle art then starts digging into what some of the critical hurdles to giving fewer fooks are. And according to Manson, choosing to offer less fooks, that is, reprioritizing what matters and what doesn't, can lead to several setbacks before mastering the art. And so these hurdles include, for example, the first one, misinterpretation of happiness. Mark Manson believes that happiness is not an equation to be solved or an achievement accomplished when we do the right stuff. Instead, he believes that it is a state of mind that we cultivate via our actions. He claims that happiness isn't merely the absence of unhappiness. Instead, he thinks that being unhappy and unsatisfied is part of life and serves as a necessary counterbalance to happiness. Happiness, according to Manson, is derived from overcoming obstacles and challenges. It's a continual pursuit because there are always new challenges to tackle. Each one you solve creates the seed for a new one. People who don't understand how to be happy and look for long-term happiness give too many fooks about the wrong thing. Now, the second hurdle or obstacle is overemphasizing emotions. Now, emotions, according to Manson, give us feedback, letting us know whether or not something is beneficial or harmful for us. The problem is that many people overplay their emotions and use them as an excuse for their behavior. So for example, someone might say something like, look, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you in that coffee shop in front of everyone, but I was so furious and I just couldn't help it. In life, emotions are essential, yet that doesn't only reflect what life is about. Instead, you should focus on what you care about based upon your principles, not your feelings. What children do is make decisions based typically on their emotions, and this simply doesn't work. That's why we mature. And the third obstacle is believing that everyone is special. According to Manson, many people's difficulties coping with life may be traced back to the 1960s and 70s self-esteem exceptionalism movement, which spread via schools, churches, and business development seminars. Feeling good about yourself took precedence over trying things because it was easier. In the end, it has contributed to people with great difficulties dealing with the hardships and the challenges of life. Now, Mark explicitly says you aren't unique. There are millions of people like you. Making excellent value-based decisions is challenging when you believe you're special and have the right to feel good and be problem-free. And the fourth is trying to avoid pain. To be happy, Manson says, you must work hard to solve your difficulties. What are you willing to put up with to get what you want? How much suffering are you prepared to endure to achieve that goal? The answers to these questions shape our lives. The pain we feel tells us what we need to focus on. It teaches us what not to do in the future. We miss life's lessons when we aim for a life free of challenges and hardship. There is no such thing as a pain-free life. Instead, you must decide what kind of pain or hardship you will tolerate achieving in terms of what you want. And the fifth hurdle is adopting destructive values. Our culture and media, according to Manson, tends to promote destructive values that crowd out positive ones, more adaptive ones, resulting in this sense of discontent. Now, values that are detrimental to society include pleasure. It's part of life, but it's not enough to bring happiness on its own. Your health and well-being can be jeopardized if you place too much emphasis on superficial pleasure. Furthermore, it's a value that hinders interpersonal connections. The next one is material success. People's sense of self-worth is often tied to wealth or possessions. However, acquiring more money only diminishes our sense of fulfillment over time. Riches and success can contribute to being shallow if we place them above more fundamental values. Always being right is another one. Now, a lot of the time, we're wrong about what we think we know. You'll get irritated if you believe you have to be correct all the time. Also, if you don't admit your mistakes, you won't be able to learn from them. Another one is staying positive. Staying positive has benefits, but it's unhealthy to deny reality when it's cruel or to repress negative emotions. Sometimes life stinks. Constantly being positive is a way of avoiding problems rather than solving them. Manson proposes that instead of living a life consumed by superficial pursuits and those destructive values that I've just mentioned, you adopt these 5 constructive principles to help you give a fook about relevant things. Firstly, take responsibility for everything that happens in your life, whether or not it's your fault. You may not be to blame for what happens to you, but you're responsible for choosing how you respond. And secondly, admit that you could be wrong. To grow, you should entertain a doubt about your beliefs, your feelings, and your rightness. Instead of proving you're right, you should look for ways you're wrong to see whether you can grow. Accept that you aren't always right. And the third concept is embrace failure. Failure is an opportunity to learn. To succeed at something, you first have to fail, usually multiple times, so that you can understand. And fourthly, practice rejection. Our culture tells us always to be positive and accepting of everything, but to stand for something, you have to make choices, accepting some things and rejecting others. And the fifth principle that Manson proposes is reflect on your mortality to keep your life and values in perspective. You aren't as obsessed with trivial things when you confront and accept the reality that you'll die. He promises that when you live by values and standards that are meaningful to you, pleasure, success, and happiness will come as a result. You only have so many fooks to give. Remember that. You must use them wisely. This was the take-home message from The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fook. Now, in one of my next videos, I'll expand on those 5 principles needed to achieve what you want to achieve. I'll also talk about what I think are the psychological underpinnings of this book and some of the criticisms that have been leveled at this book. Don't forget to subscribe and push the notification bell so that you know when I release more videos on these important fooking topics. But for now, I highly recommend reading this book. Take care, don't give a fook, and bye for now.